Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'm coming at you with my Winter 2018 anime watch list. I did a video like this for the previous season after we were a few weeks in and we'd gotten past the first, second, and third episodes of all the series, and we pretty much had it locked in, what we're going to be watching and everything like that. When I had finally reached that for myself, I did a video talking about all the shows I'm watching every day of the week, that kind of thing, as a sort of overview, just to give my thoughts on each of the series I'm watching. And because what sort of was the impetus behind that is not a lot of people follow me over on my Facebook account. It's a personal account, not a fan page, but whereupon I post short written reviews about anything that I have an interest in talking about that I don't happen to want to, do a video about, especially where it pertains to anime and everything like that. And much as was the case with the previous season, I've topped out at 18 different shows all across the week, once again in the Winter 2018 season. And I don't find myself as readily doing write-ups in this season thus far as I had the previous. But I figured I would kind of just come on and talk about it since I'm locked in, I know what I'm watching, and give sort of a brief overview on what I think of each of the series. And that's going to include live action shows, much as it did in that previous season video. I'll get the live action stuff out of the way right away because I know if you clicked on this video, you primarily want to hear about the anime. So Sundays, I'm watching Star Trek Discovery. I think there's only maybe 2 or 3 episodes left of that as of the time of this recording for them to finish out their first season. Really enjoying that show. On Tuesdays, I'm watching Lethal Weapon Season 2, and on Wednesdays, Riverdale Season 2. I don't know the respective lengths of either of those. I don't know how much longer, they're going to be going until they reach their culmination for their second seasons. And then I'm also waiting for the Monday slot of Star Wars Rebels to come back with its second half of Season 4, its fourth and final season. Hopefully that's going to be coming back soon. So that'll definitely round out my Mondays. But that's primarily everything I'm watching that does not include anime. Again, Star Trek Discovery on Sundays, Lethal Weapon Season 2 on Tuesdays, Riverdale Season 2 on Wednesdays, and whenever the hell Star Wars Rebels comes back, I'll be watching that. So without further ado, I'm going to start talking about each of the anime episodes and series I'm watching all the week long. I've bracketed this up much as I did in that previous video each day of the week, and we're going to start off with Sunday. So the first show I watch on Sundays is Mitsuboshi Colors, and this is an adorable, fun-loving, feel-good, hilarious series. It really well encapsulates a sense of realism as to like the childlike mind. Its 3 main characters are all little girls, and they are just portrayed and depicted so realistically to what I've seen children do, what I as myself as a child would do, very imaginative and having a unique perspective. And each of the 3 characters are wholly unique in and of themselves. The leader of the little pseudo group Colors, who are supposed to be the protectors of their town, and they go on these missions that the local business people and their parents, the local PD, all sends them on, these little mysteries to solve and everything like that. But the leader of the group is the most timid one out of them all. It's just hilarious. You have the gamer girl who's like a sadist and like really weird, really like off the wall, obsessed with death and finding bodies and dismembered body parts and all this kind of stuff. She has really dark personality. And then what might be my favorite character, Sachan, who is obsessed with the mysteries of poop. You got to forgive me, but I'm a Beavis and Butthead fan. I'm a scatological fan. It gets me cracking up from time to time. And whenever she's talking about poop, I mean, sometimes she gets all out philosophical with it and zen with it. It gets me cracking up. Like every conversation, it could be a question of like, when is the mail going to arrive? Well, maybe it's not here yet because the mailman had to poop, something like that. My mother was constipated. It's the mystery of poop. Where does it go if she can't let it out? I'm sorry, but I find that hilarious, and it gets me cracking up all the time. I love that show. It's, again, a really feel-good show, Mitsuboshi Colors. I'm also watching on Sundays Kokkoku, I think is how it's pronounced, and it's a really interesting. I had the impression upon it that it was going to be like a time travel kind of series. And it's not quite. It's more revolving around the stoppage of time, freezing time, and then free roaming within that stopped time. You're basically following around a young woman, her grandfather, her father, I think, her brother and nephew as well. And, they're not all capable of moving around within this frozen time at the start, but they all become capable, and there are like these antagonistic factions, these gangs, for lack of a better term, that are opposing, and it's they're very much after the device, for lack of a better term, that instigates this stoppage of time for this young woman and her grandfather, a sort of rock, like a mystical, magical rock, this element that can freeze time. And it's interesting because there is a lot of mysticism and paranormal elements to it that I did not expect. And I thought it was going to be more, traditional sort of sci-fi time travel, moving back and forth through time. And that's not the case at all. But when they do reach points where they discuss sort of hopping from one point in frozen time to the next, the way they equate it as sort of like stopping a film reel and moving from one square to the next, that kind of thing. It kind of harkened back to me the series Erased, which I covered episodically when that was airing. And it's really interesting. Like they're on the run, this young woman, her grandfather, and they're trying to save her brother and the nephew and everything like that, as well as her father, and there's this big sort of gigantic paranormal creature that will, air quotes, punish somebody who tries to kill someone else who is incapable of defending themselves within the frozen time. But as we saw in one of the latest episodes, it dissipates over time. Like the more times it manifests and slaughters these people who are trying to murder people who are frozen, it breaks down over the course of all of its manifestations. So it's really trippy and really weird, but really, really intriguing. And I love the fact that the MC, the young woman, on her t-shirt, she wears kind of a lab coat, and that kind of reminded me of Steins Gate to begin with. But her t-shirt has HGW, which stands to my mind out as being H.G. Wells, a reference to H.G. Wells, the author of one of my all-time favorite books, if not my all-time favorite book, The Time Machine. And so I love that little homage there. Even though it's not quite time travel, it's the stoppage of time, and there's a lot of mysticism and interesting aspects, religious aspects to it. I just find it really compelling and interesting. But I haven't been motivated to really talk about it in episodic reviews. Haven't really written a lot of it up. Just been really watching it, intrigued, that kind of thing. So moving on to Mondays, I'm only watching one show, and that is Teasing Master Takagi-san, which I did do a couple of write-ups for the first couple of episodes over my Facebook account. And I wasn't all that pleased with it, if I'm honest. I was really kind of irked by it, and because I could see it coming from a mile away. It was just a one-trick pony as far as the reoccurring joke. You have the boy who's always constantly being teased by the girl, Takagi-san, and he's always trying to get back at her, trying to get better of her, but it fails miserably every single time, and he loses his mind, and he gets enraged, and it's the same basic thing over and over and over again. What I will say is the first couple of episodes were very repetitive, to an almost nauseating level, but I've kind of leveled out now. I'm kind of starting to enjoy it because they are building up a little bit more of the fact that Takagi kind of likes the guy. The one she's constantly making fun of and teasing and putting into precarious situations, getting him in trouble with the teachers and everything like that, making him have to stay after class to clean the classroom as punishment for making loud noises, reacting to all the pranks she pulls while the lesson is going on in the class. And I don't know, I've kind of warmed to it. I'm kind of enjoying it a little bit more. I kind of found myself, for the latest episode this week, I kind of found myself, excitedly anticipating it. I don't know why. It's interesting that. I think there's a level of having to acclimate to a new series. Another series that I'm watching, which I'll get to when I get to Thursdays, it's a similar scenario. I did not like it at all from the beginning. I had a lot of problems with it. I wrote some very criticism heavy short write-ups over my Facebook account when the show started, and how it's kind of equaled out for me. There's an equilibrium where I'm enjoying it a little bit more. But I'll get to that when I get to Thursdays. Again, Mondays, Teasing Master Takagi-san is what I'm watching, and that's all I'm watching on Mondays thus far. Tuesdays, which is my first review day of the week, I review A Place Further Than the Universe, or Sora Yori Motoi Basho. Thoroughly enjoying that series. You have but to watch my episode discussion videos to see what I really think about that, so I'm not going to really delve too deeply into that in this video, but I love that show. I think it's probably in line as my second spot as being favorite of the winter 2018 season, which I said in my latest episode discussion video as of the time of this recording. I'm also watching, which is probably going to break a couple minds, still watching Black Clover. And the interesting thing about that is it's been hit and miss. In the early going, I couldn't stand it. Then there were a couple of episodes where it was like, it's all right. Then I couldn't stand it again. And then the latest episode I think it's 17, as of the time of this recording, was actually really good. I really enjoyed it. Asta, who has the worst voice in the world, the ear-piercing whine that is like undefinable, as to how bad it is. He really stepped up to the plate in this latest episode, and I was just kind of wowed by it. I'm like, okay, this made it worth sticking with this. I don't put it out there for anyone else to challenge themselves and try to commit to it and try to stick with it and try to watch it at all. If they don't have a taste for it, if they found they weren't really into it from the beginning, it's not something I'm going to try to persuade anyone to watch, but I'm watching it and I just happen to be enjoying it now. So, again, for Tuesdays, that's A Place Further Than the Universe and Black Clover. Wednesdays, again, there's nothing that I'm watching, which is why I'm doing this video, uploading it on a Wednesday, because it's my sort of free day of the week. If I don't happen to get around to Teasing Master Takagi-san or Black Clover or whatever, Monday and Tuesday, I'll carry them over and watch them on Wednesday morning, that kind of thing, which is actually what I did this morning. I caught up on both of those early this morning because I didn't have time to get around to them Monday and Tuesday. So Thursday, we skip ahead to Thursday, and Thursday is the first day of the week that I'm watching the most episodes at one time. I have 2 reviews I typically do on Thursdays, and that is Violet Evergarden and Love is Like After the Rain, or Koi wa Ameagari no Yo ni. And that is my sort of top favorite for the season thus far, Love is Like After the Rain. Violet Evergarden is another show where I didn't really warm to it from the get-go, and it seems to have been part and parcel with the fact that I was just watching it in really poor quality where I was able to watch it. And then the third episode, I think it was, third or fourth episode, whatever it is, whatever the latest one was last week as of the time of this recording, I had to sing its praises because suddenly it looked that much better. It wasn't the poor quality of the first 2 episodes. I think it was the third episode. And I've really warmed to it now. I thought the latest episode, again, calling back to last week, which I think was episode 3, was really well written, really well paced, really captivating with the characterization, and I can only hope that continues. We'll see, based on the poor impression I did have of the first 2 episodes. But Love is Like After the Rain is the top sort of tier for me for the moment, as far as favorite episode of the winter 2018 season, or favorite series, I should say. And then after that, as I mentioned earlier, the A Place Further Than the Universe. But I'm also watching Yuru Camp on Thursdays, which is the show I meant to say earlier, I alluded to earlier, which was one that I did some short sort of write-ups, short reviews, very criticism heavy over on my Facebook account. Because I really wasn't warming to it. I really didn't think I was going to enjoy it at all. And I found myself, much like Teasing Master Takagi-san, and Black Clover, and even Violet Evergarden now, I have found myself warming to it. I've found myself almost, excitedly anticipating when the next episode's going to be out, and the fact that I'm going to be watching it. There's just something about it that I don't know. I was reminded, and I made this comparison to one of the main characters, or the main character with the pink hair, whose name escapes me, but I said she reminded me of sort of a discount version of the main character from Sakura Quest. Sakura Quest was another series that I didn't get off to a good start with, but I ended up falling in love with. And I don't think I'm going to fall in love with Yuru Camp, but I am enjoying it a lot more, and I am looking forward to watching it every week a lot more. And I don't know why. It's just one of those things. I think, again, there's a level of acclimation. Once you acclimate to a series, you start to look forward to it. That's probably what it is. And then the last two shows on Thursdays that I'm watching, I'm going to butcher this, but one is Märchen Mädchen, I think is how it's pronounced. Maybe not. As well as Death March to the Parallel World Rhapsody. Both of these are nothing really to sing praises about, as far as I'm concerned. Both of them, I think a lot of people might even consider a waste of time, not very good, not worth watching. And I can't exactly explain why I'm watching them, except to say they kind of just fill the void of my free time between Thursday, Friday, and the weekend. They are not wholly horrible, but they are not wholly, charismatic or great characterization or anything like that. With the Märchen Mädchen, or however that's pronounced, I was really enticed by the premise, looking at the synopsis before the show began, and the first episode wasn't great. It didn't deliver on the things the way I thought it was going to, and I've just kind of been watching it just because. Just because what the hell. Similarly with Death March to a Parallel World Rhapsody, say that 3 times fast. The first episode of that show I found really, really compelling. And then they did a complete switcheroo on you, as far as, it's the sort of the typical thing. The guy is transported to a sort of MMORPG sort of world, and he's OP as all F, and he's building his little harem and all this kind of stuff, and it's just I don't know, it's sort of generic, and it's just a really, really passive watch for me. I don't know how else to really equate it. It's not in any way stellar. It's nothing that you should go out and spend your time watching, as far as I'm concerned. I'm just watching it for the hell of it, much like Märchen Mädchen or whatever. And that rounds out Thursdays. So again, that's Love Is Like After the Rain, Violet Evergarden, Yuru Camp, Märchen Mädchen, and Death March to the Parallel World Rhapsody. I almost want to say Parallel World Reality, but it's Rhapsody. So that brings us to Fridays, and the first one I have in my list here is Hakumei to Mikochi, which is really just a warm, really feel-good kind of show. It's very sort of, fairy tale, fantasy-esque. I don't know if the main characters are like gnomes or fairies or like pixies or whatever. These two girls, they live in the forest, and they are like very diminutive in size. Bugs tower over them and communicate with them, and it's a really fantasy setting. There is some supernatural elements to it as well. The character designs really remind me of things like Girls Last Tour or Made in Abyss. And it's just a really feel-good, passive, relaxing kind of show, much like Mitsuboshi Colors, and even Teasing Master Takagi-san to a degree. It's made up of sort of vignettes, mini stories that are made up of the whole episode, basically. And usually between 2 to 3, sometimes 4, there's like an end cap joke or something like that that they do. And it's just a really warm, fuzzy feeling kind of show. Really relaxing to watch, and cute and adorable as all hell. Kawaii as all hell. Also watching on Fridays, Toji no Miko, which I believe I did a first impressions video on. I had equated it to reminding me a lot of Aria the Scarlet Ammo, as well as its spin-off season AA, which I covered in reviews. I reviewed the whole first season, then I covered episodically AA. And it still very much reminds me of that. Katana-wielding girls. The two main characters are on the run from the sort of leadership of the school where they were training or whatever like that, because the leader of that school is possessed, and they're trying to, I guess, amass all the main characters, some of which are chasing the two mains who are on the run. But over time, they're going to amass and become a little conglomerate, a little group, and they're going to turn the tables on, the villainous of the series kind of thing. And, again, supernatural elements, sword and sorcery, that kind of stuff, but in a contemporary setting, not a fantasy world setting. And it's actiony, and I like it, is all I can say. Also on Fridays, I'm still watching Garo Vanishing line, which is all kinds of awesome sauce. I love it. As well as the series Beatless, which is another one of these kind of akin to what I said about Märchen Mädchen and Death March to the Parallel World Rhapsody. Is kind of I don't know why I'm watching it exactly. It's not bad. It's kind of generic. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Plastic Memories. Like it could almost take place as an offshoot to the series Plastic Memories, which I believe I covered episodically in reviews when that was airing. Kid finds a robotic, super-powered android chick, becomes her owner, and then comes under the attack of all these antagonistic ones and whatever like that. She's an escapee from a production facility or whatever like that. She's supposed to be like a top secret warrior bot, and but she cooks breakfast for he and his sister, and she became a model, and it's not great, but I'm enjoying it. So and that rounds us out to the final day of the week, Saturdays, where I'm watching 4 shows. One I'm really hesitant to even mention just because the first season of this particular series, any mention of it, you didn't have to show any footage in your videos. You only needed but the title in your video title or in the description somewhere, screenshots for thumbnails. You would get copyright strike after copyright strike. And I had initially started reviewing the first season. I got 4 episodes in before I decided, forget it, I'm just going to delete them, because I kept seeing other channels, risking their channels being completely taken down entirely. They're losing their channels over this. But suffice to say, Dagashi Kaji Season 2. I am loving that, watching that. I do wish it wasn't only 12 minutes in length each episode. I feel like they're really scrimping on the characterization that was a really fun part of the first season, because the episodes were traditional 24-minute length. And here I just feel like they've dialed back on a lot of the stuff I loved. I know it's supposed to be a show about Dagashi, candies, convenience store, toys, and things, all of that stuff that falls under the title of Dagashi, and kind of being an educational thing. And that's cool and that's funny, but Hotaru is awesome, and I love her relationship with Kokonatsu, and I wish there was more time to develop that. I don't really know. I struggle to see, because it feels like with each episode they bracket up into 2 halves, and it's very much spent talking about whatever the Dagashi for the week is, and there's usually 2 for each segment. So it's kind of a shame that they've dialed back on how long that is. you know, so you don't really get the character interactivity and stuff like that, but whatever, it's still fun to watch. I am still watching ClassicaLoid Season 2, and I'm reviewing it every week for those who probably don't care who are watching this video, because there's not a lot of people who actually give a crap about ClassicaLoid at all, but I love it, and I love talking about it. In my last episode discussion video, I got into a whole, the best, closest estimation I can to a sort of Western cowboy motif, because they had a Western cowboy motif episode. And it's just a fun blast of a series, and I wish more people were watching it. And then rounding us out, Saturdays, I'm watching The Ancient Magus Bride and Sangatsu no Lion Season 2, both of which are stellar, stellar series. Especially Sangatsu no Lion. I had a love-hate relationship with the first season, and I'm sure I've talked about this before. Might have even talked about it in my previous video to this effect, talking about the previous season. I had a really love-hate reaction to the first season of it, but I found when season 2 began, I didn't get immediately into it when season 2 came back, and I had debated with myself whether or not I was even going to bother watching it. And then I had heard what I believed to be the main character's voice actor's voice in another anime, a completely different anime, and suddenly I started to have this fondness of recollection of watching the first season, especially toward the end of the first season. And so my curiosity got the better of me. I said to myself, if I have some free time, I'm going to pick up season 2, see what it's like. And season 2 has thoroughly surpassed the first season in quality, in characterization, in storytelling, and animation, at least as far as I'm concerned, what I can tell on my, smartphone screen. The depth of the story, everything going on with Hana and everything like that, the bullying in her school just rips your heart out, but then it puts it all back together again. And the latest episode, last week's episode, last Saturday's, as of the time of this recording, was just phenomenal. It blew my mind. And similarly so with Ancient Magus Bride. The latest episode of that was a really feel-good sort of Christmassy episode, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. But I love the mystical, magical, fantasy sort of environment it all takes place in, as well as the main characters and their interactivity. I mean, I think that is the most outstanding thing, the reoccurring thing with all of these shows, whether they are really, really fantastic or they're kind of generic crap, there's still always something that I myself am empathetic toward and pick up on as far as the characterization, the relationships, the dynamics between the characters. And that is, I think, the most overhanging, reoccurring thing that attracts me to, like any of these, basically. And that's really, I mean, otherwise it's inexplicable. I don't exactly know. I get some level of enjoyment out of it. I can't always quantify that, but, I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're horrible. Even when they're generic, I don't think they're necessarily worth turning off. And if I can enjoy it, and I can enjoy as much anime, as I can put on my plate, like going to a buffet, I just want to watch as much as I can and try to enjoy as much as I can. Try to watch, a bunch of diverse things, not all the same things over and over and over again, which sometimes creates a little bit of a confusion or a conflict with other people who might recommend something and be like, oh man, you like this show, you're going to love that show. But, well, I don't always, because sometimes I want something different, that kind of thing. It's all subjective. It's all to our own tastes. But again, one final recap, starting with Sunday, Mitsuboshi Colors and Kokkoku. Monday, Teasing Master Takagi-san. Tuesday, Place Further Than the Universe, Black Clover. Nothing on Wednesday. Thursday, Love is Like After the Rain, Violet Evergarden, Yuru Camp, Märchen Mädchen, Death March to the Parallel World, Rhapsody. Fridays, Hakumei to Mikochi, Toji no Miko, Beatless, Garo Vanishing Line, and Saturdays, Tagashikashi 2, ClassicaLoid 2, Ancient Magus Bride, and Sangatsu no Lion Season 2. So, if I haven't wasted enough of your time, please let me know in the comments below. Here is a virtual cookie for you, and let me know what you're watching, what you're enjoying, if you're watching any of this stuff, if you're watching anything that I'm not watching. Chances are, if I haven't already picked it up, I'm not going to be picking it up, but you never know. These are what I'm watching, and I'd love to hear from you, one way or the other. Love it or hate it. You know, our POVs can thoroughly disagree. You can completely hate every single one of these. You can hate a couple of them. You can love a couple of them. You can think it's completely, like, baseless that I've said, you know, Beatless is kind of generic. Maybe it's the best thing you've ever seen. Let me know that in the comments below. And so, yeah, otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. If this video finds you well, I'll catch y'all later. Peace.